Okay. Hello, everyone. Namaskara. The lights are off, and we want to start on a solemn note because of a tragedy that took place yesterday in the running community in Mumbai. So, Sunil, could you explain why? And we'll take a minute's silence.
Yeah, just going to request everybody to stand for 1 minute silence. We lost one of our running family members, sadly, in an accident on Sunday in Mumbai. Thank you.
Yeah, so we gather here today to hear about Sunil's exploits. But before we do that, I think it'll be nice to know how many of you have actually run with Sunil in this audience? Could you just show of hands? Okay, so it's less than a third. So a lot of you have not run with Sunil. That's great. And how many of you run in the audience? Show of hands. Okay, how many of you don't run? And you can put your hand up. It's fine. Yeah, okay. Ravi's hand was the highest at the back. Okay, so that's great. And age may be for wine and cheese, but how many of you are over 50? You can raise your hand. Okay, how many of you are below 50? Sorry. Okay, so we have a decent smattering of people of ages and running, non-running interests, and who have run with Sunil. That's great to know. Okay, 60 is the new 40 was how this was titled. Age is just a number. It's also how old you really feel. And someone once said that, how old would you be if you didn't know your age? I mean, how old do you think you are if you don't know your age? And from time immemorial, people have tried to be young, right? In every mythology. I mean, famously, Cleopatra, I think, used to wash herself in the milk of asses because she was told that would keep her young. And if you study the history of Florida, the chap, Ponce de Leon, who first went looking for the fountain of youth, he apparently found it in Florida. So I wanted to ask Sunil where he found his fountain of youth. What do you drink? Water of Koromangala, or what's the secret of your...
Water, what's that? I think living in Bangalore, you can guess what I drink. I keep a certain local company in business. I've kept them afloat through tough times. So you can imagine which company that is.
Yeah. So those of you who don't know, Sunil, beer is an important ingredient of his running mantra. Yeah, so Kingfisher is your answer. But everyone is always seeking the fountain of youth, and that's the kind of trajectory we're going to go on today. The other thing which I was trying to prepare for this introduction after I hand over to Sunil, moderator has to say something smart and make people engaged, right? Apparently in our Vedic traditions, the mean life of a human being is 100 years. So when you reach 50, you have lived your life. And the next 50 years is when you actually mature and do things that count. But your age once you cross 50 is how many years left to 100. So recently when Sri Chand Hinduja had his 70th birthday, he invited everyone for his 30th birthday. Right? So I'm trying to figure out who's the oldest person in this room by this logic. Is anyone more than 50? Okay, anyone more than 60?
Sunil is the oldest person.
Anyone more than 70? Okay, someone more than 70? By the logic of how many years left to 100, right? Yeah, let me repeat. By the logic of how many years left to 100, who's the oldest person? Anyone more than 60? That's great. Okay, so 60 is the new 40, but some people say 60 is the new 60. Okay, it's all very complicated, and so I'm going to ask Sunil to take over. Just one question. We're all from Bangalore here. I'm a salesman of the city, and I think it's a brilliant city because it's India's running city. And many of you, and like me, have been running here since 2005. So before Sunil gets into his own exploits, I want to know, what is the impact of this city, its people, its running culture, and have you been inspired by anyone you ran with out here?
Well, I think I started running with the Hash House Harriers here, chasing a beer. So that was a huge inspiration. And I continue to do that. May not be running with the Hash, but I continue to run and enjoy something cold at the end of it. But yes, I think if running took off in India about 15 years ago, and certainly Bangalore was the had a head start on other cities in terms of the number of runners. And in those days, you didn't have to go that far to run. Nowadays, with the traffic, you have to go much further to find safer places to run. But there's running groups like Runners for Life, which came up in, I think, 2006 or 7, were a major driver for the running revolution in Bangalore. And I think after Bangalore, many other cities started to catch up. So, yes, I mean, Bangalore was, I believe in distance running, Bangalore was a trailblazer in the country.
Any particular inspirational person or?
I will come to that in a bit. I've certainly had a few inspiring people I've met during the course of my running. So I will talk about that shortly.
Okay, so we're here also to talk about those medals. There should be 6, but there are 9. Right? He's done the Super 6 marathon, and there are 9 medals. So he will explain to you what the other 3 are. And one of them is a record. It's a Guinness record. So why don't you tell us your story?
So the medal in the middle, which has got 6 stars, and I'd like to introduce another friend, Ambuj, where you please identify yourself. Please stand up. Ambuj completed his 6 star with me in Tokyo on the 5th of March. Yeah. And I dare say, much faster than me. Well, if you can look at them, there are 9 medals there. And the reason there are 9 medals is that there are 6 major marathons in the world, but one of them, that's Berlin, I have run twice. So that counts for 7. The 8th medal is the one in the middle, which is when you finish the 6 marathons, you get what's called the 6-star medal. And next to that, the one with the white ribbon was, it's a good marketing. It's a Guinness record medal, because in Tokyo this year, more than 3,000 people earned their 6-star. Prior to that, all over the world, there were about 7,500 or 8,000 who had got it. In one race, there were 3,000 people who got it. And so they called it a Guinness record. It was pent-up demand, 3 years of races being cancelled, and not just in Tokyo, but all over the world. So the build-up of 3 years. So that's the 9th medal.
Okay. And I mean, what it doesn't say is that, what these medals don't say is that he got all 6 after the age of 60. So I think that is the most incredible thing that, and the theme of the topic is forever young. It's not about running. And he got this crazy idea to do the 6 after he turned 60. So that's what we want to hear now. Tell us about each race and how it all began.
Okay. We talk about age being a number. This is the person who's been my inspiration. Many of you recognize him, the legendary Fauja Singh, who's well over 100 now. And he was a poster boy for, I think this was the Edinburgh Marathon. And he was well over 90, and I really love this picture of him. Fauja ran his first marathon at the age of 89. Now, he was not a runner. He moved to London because he lost his wife and then one son in Punjab, and then the other son was in London. He moved there, and he used to walk to the Gurdwara. And then somebody said, "You're a good runner, why don't you take up running?" He ran his first marathon at the age of 89. And he kept getting faster till he was 94, and that's what led him to become the poster boy for Adidas. The other poster boy was a little-known guy called David Beckham. So I had the good fortune of meeting him about 10 years ago in his Gurdwara, where in the office, where what's hidden here is that on one side of the office, he had a mini gym. So he used to go to the Gurdwara and then work out there too. So, when people say you're too old to do this, too old to do that, here's the ultimate example of what can be done. Coming to the majors, as we said, running took off in India around 2005, 2006. And at that time, there were hardly any people who were doing marathons. In fact, the first Mumbai marathon was 2004, and probably for the marathon, and talk just the marathon, I'm not talking shorter distances, but for the marathon, then they probably had about 300 runners. People weren't running, there were very few people running a full marathon, and very few people who were traveling to run. And I just happened to, I have a very close friend who lives in Berlin, and he said, "Why don't you come and run in Berlin?" So I landed up in Berlin to party. As you know, it's a great beer capital. I did not know that this was one of the major marathons in the world. I didn't know what running was like that. There, those again, it was absolutely an amazing carnival. 45,000 runners and all ages, bands all the way, 1 million spectators, non-stop partying. It's an amazing experience. And the run, it goes through the best parts of Berlin. And you see the middle, you start at the end, and it goes through most of the historic parts of Berlin. But what is one of the most spectacular things of this run is that at the end, just 200 meters before the end, you run through Brandenburg Gate, not round it, but through it, and you get to the end. So that's me at the, it's one picture is me running, and the other is at the end of the Berlin 2008. After that, I had 3 years of very, very good running by my standards. I moved from running marathons to ultra marathons, and there was the Bangalore Ultra, and when I ran various distances there. I also had the good fortune to run in 2010 in Athens. That was the year which was the 2500th anniversary of the original marathon. When Philippides ran to give the message, it was 490 BC. So this was the 2500th year. And where this marathon normally gets about 3,000 or 4,000 runners, that year there were about 12,000 runners in an amazing atmosphere. And then I ran the Comrades in South Africa in 2011 when it was hardly known. In fact, we were the first group of Indians who did what is called the up run in 2011. At that time, I think, but when I finished it, we were among the first 10 in India to finish it. Just to show how much running has grown, these years, almost 300 Indians go for that race. So that's the change in these years. And I had improved my time in Mumbai 2011, which helped me get a better seeding in Comrades. But then, soon after that, I learned about something nasty called the Achilles heel. And Arun was going to, rib me about this, but, everybody...
I mean, you talked about Philippides, right? So we have to go into Greek mythology. Yeah. So Achilles, the weakest point of Achilles was his heel. I think most of you know why. But if you don't, his mom dipped him in the fountain of youth and held him by the heel. Right? So he was immortal and all that. So my question was, when you were in the hashers, I hear they have these rituals where they dip you in brown liquids.
Probably not somebody.
But your Achilles heel was your Achilles heel.
It was
so poetic, actually.
It was really was. Till then, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it really meant. But it was really a most annoying injury I had, and I didn't get it by. Sometimes you get it by tearing a muscle or pulling a tendon or something. Nothing of that sort. This is just years of wear and tear, overpronation, and it was a nightmare for me. And I went around, to a lot of top sports physios. Everybody helped me up to a point. In fact, it got to a stage when a major surgery was suggested, but I absolutely refused it. And so these years, my running was really very limited. It was, if I ran 5K, I was limping for 3 days. It was really, very difficult period for running. But I was determined to get back, and thanks to all the physios I've worked with, I had a fair amount of strength training, taking the load of the calf muscles, stretching, a lot of strengthening. I managed to get back to running, but I have to say that even today that while I don't suffer so much from the injury, I have to be conscious that it's never ever going to be normal. The Achilles, because it's been the angle of the Achilles in my case has changed, and there's nothing can be done to reverse that. Now,
interrupt you. You were telling me about the various treatments you tried for the Achilles heel, including needles.
Yes,
Can you tell us which all experts you consulted and what finally worked or did not work? And then, yeah.
I think a combination of things worked. I was talking. Some of you are aware of what sports people go through. It's called dry needling, which is different from acupressure. It's dry needling is actually putting needles into where the real injury is. And there were times when I had about a dozen needles at the back of my heel, and I promise you it wasn't very pleasant. But I was determined to get back, and touch wood, something worked.
I mean, you could easily have opted out or switched your distance or switched your activity. Why did you not do that? Why did you not give up? Seriously.
Marathoners don't give up easy. So, coming to the world majors. Now, this is something which was started in 2006, covering some of the biggest and most prestigious marathons in the world. There were originally 5, which is listed there: Boston, London, Berlin, Chicago, and New York. And Tokyo was added in 2013. But the way it works is that if you want to finish your six stars, you must have run after that date. So, like if you had run Tokyo in 2011, it won't count. You would have had to run Tokyo after 2013. And there is talk of adding a couple more majors. Good marketing, I think, from the guys to get people to go for them. But so if those are added, even if you run them before, they won't count. It will only be counted if you run those majors after they've been introduced to the majors.
Can I interrupt? I mean, why are these 6? What's the big deal about these 6 that were chosen? Any reason or logic? Or
They are among the biggest and most popular marathons in the world, and they also wanted. Well, there may be more marathons in the US which are bigger than Tokyo, but they also wanted international field. They wanted to try and go across continents. So at this moment, for example, you'll see what's missing is glaring missing is there's nothing in Africa. So there is talk of Cape Town being added. There's also talk of Sydney being added. So these have to be marathons. And again, now when we look at India's marathon, the biggest is the Mumbai Marathon. And to give the Mumbai Marathon talks of 50,000 runners, but there are fewer than 10,000 who do the full marathon. All these marathons are only marathons. There are no shorter distances. And the biggest is New York, which has got about 55,000. And that too is difficult to get into. I think if New York was to stay open, you'd probably get 200,000 people running.
Okay, just for the benefit of the audience, can you tell us the approximate numbers? How difficult it is to actually qualify for these marathons, say Boston? What does it take to...
So they have age-wise qualifiers. I was not, I'll be honest, I could not get there. I know there are many great runners here in the audience who got in through qualifying. There are other ways to get in through a travel company or charity. But some of them are very difficult. In fact, I'd dare say that getting into London or Tokyo is even tougher than getting into Boston. So they have timings by age group, and so qualifying is not easy. Yet, given the strength of amateur running globally, if anything, the qualifying times are getting tougher and tougher. So even like say at a particular age group now in Boston, suppose to say you have to do it in say sub 3 hours 30. If you've done a 3:29, it doesn't guarantee you because there'll be so many people there. So you may have to be a 3:25 to get in. So there's a huge demand for these races. And the smallest of them, I think, was Tokyo at about 38,000. So even at 38,000, I think if they kept it open, 100,000 people would have landed up there. So I laughed. In 2018, I ran the London Marathon, and that was I'd lived at one stage in life. I'd lived in London, lived and worked there. So this was like a home marathon for me. I was still not aware of what the concept of majors was there. It was an amazing marathon, 50,000 runners and 1 million spectators. So the London Marathon route starts, it's bottom right, it starts in the East End near Greenwich, comes down, comes to west, and then at one stage crosses the river, goes round, and it ends up very close to Buckingham Palace in the Mall. With that that year was the hottest London marathon on record. It was about, I think, 26 or 27 Celsius, which for us may not seem very hot, but try standing in the sun, a sharp sun for an hour, 27 degrees, and I think you'll feel it. And certainly it got to me. I was beaten by the weather. I thought I was in fairly good shape. But halfway through the race, I was starting to feel a bit wobbly. And I said, let me just sit and hydrate. Next thing I knew, I was flat on the ground. Low BP, cramping, throwing up. What was a 1 minute break turned out to be almost an hour. And then I got up and I said, should I just give up? And I said, if I give up, what do? I'll get into a crowded tube, which is the last thing I wanted to do. So I said, let me start walking. So I crawled, walked, and somehow managed to get to the finish line in my slowest time, but I still got a medal. So I'd say that, as marathoners, we should not complain about the weather. We've got to say, and I say this for myself, I was not tough enough to beat the weather. So that's me in London before the race, and on the right with a friend of mine who used to be in Bangalore. He was the British Deputy High Commissioner here, and we ran this together. September 2018, I had the good fortune of seeing some amazing running in Croatia, where I went with the Indian ultra-marathon team for the World 100K. I saw some absolutely amazing runners from all over the world. And from Croatia, I went to Berlin to run the marathon. Again, not knowing the majors, but Berlin because my good friend was there. But runners will know that if you had a bad race, it shakes your confidence. And I was really wary of, how it's going to go. It's me before the race.
To interrupt you, he casually said 100K in the previous sentence. So for the benefit of those who said don't run, that is 100 kilometers. And it's a race. There's an Indian team for that. Okay, and Sunil has a role in that, which we'll talk about later. So when you slip in this jargon, I just want to... 100 kilometers is a distance that people run who are bored of the marathon, which is only 42.2. Okay.
So that's me during the Berlin Marathon. And that's me at the end. And I think I had, by my standards, a decent race, and I think I improved on my previous best timing. So a little bit of a confidence booster after the debacle in London. Then it was New York 2019. This is the biggest marathon in the world. Over 55,000 runners and spectator support. This race takes you through all the boroughs of New York. So you have to really wake up early and you get on a boat to Staten Island, and then you run through Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, and you end up in Central Park. And it's a tough marathon. It's people talk about other hilly marathons, but New York has got all the bridges and a very, very nasty climb as you come into Central Park. We've got about 4 or 5 kilometers of 1 or 2% incline, and that doesn't seem much, but you've got 5 kilometers of that. After if you run 35 kilometers, it hurts. So the course, as I said, starts in Staten Island and ends in Central Park. And while going on the boat, I was sitting next to this lady. She was the oldest woman. She was 86 years old, and she was running the marathon. So I had, I was surprised myself in New York, thinking it was a tough race, given the ups and downs. But I had a good race, a good day, good weather, crowd support, and I think I beat my previous best time by about 2 minutes in New York. So now I had done 3 majors, and now the bug hit. If I'd done 3 to go. So I then registered for the 2020 Boston and Chicago, and was hoping by 2021 I get Tokyo and and finish it. But that led, due to the pandemic, or the races were either cancelled or restricted to a very limited field. So most people could not go for those races. Next was Boston, April 22. And I'd been to Boston in 2007 and 8. And, it was early in my running days. And it was a dream for every runner to come and run the Boston Marathon. And I dreamt of doing it. This is the oldest city marathon in the world from 1897. So I was running the 126th edition. The race starts a bit out of town, but ends in Boylston Street, which is unfortunately known for where the bombings took place in 2013. And amongst the highlights of Boston are the Wellesley College girls and the infamous Heartbreak Hill. So let me talk about the college girls, and my misfortune of running it just after COVID is that the Wellesley College comes about halfway through the race, and usually the girls have placards there saying, "Come hug me and kiss me," and get motivation through the rest. But due to COVID, or supposedly due to COVID, we were told there's going to be a fence between us and the girls, so maybe I have to go and do it again. And then there's the infamous Heartbreak Hill, which is not one of the toughest hills that I've run, but it comes at the 32-kilometer mark. And you get, a lot of people hurt there, including me. So it's what, when it comes rather than how tough it is. So this is Boston. This is the finish line on Boylston. And, when you go there a few days before and you see that, you just get goosebumps just seeing that, saying, hopefully I'm going to get there. I was saying the starts is in a town called Hopkinton, and you come through and halfway, Wellesley, as you can see, this, and it ends right in the heart, downtown Boston. That's me before the start, and that's at the end. That's one of the special medals I have, to run a race that as historical as that and finish. It was a great experience. And one of the things I treasure the most, Arun, since you were asking about my
mantra for.
Yeah, so if you look at that glass, that's a Boston Marathon glass. It's a very special glass that I've got.
Is that given only to finishers or finishers of the glass?
No, we didn't get it from finishers. We happen to be.
So for the benefit of non-runners, can someone guess what DNF stands for? Yeah, he never does that with beer.
That's a crime. Yeah. No, actually, we stole it from the pub.
I see.
It's too good a thing not to steal. Then Chicago, which was in October. I'd run soon after Boston, did the Everest Base Camp Marathon, and then registered for Chicago. Chicago is known to be one.
I ran the Everest Base Camp Marathon, as an aside, which itself is a story which he spoke, and they made out. Some of you came for that, I think, but for those of you who didn't, that was the subject of a wonderful talk with Gurmeet about running the highest marathon in the world, which is an aside. Continue. That's just a small bullet point here.
Yeah. I registered for Chicago, which was in October. It's known to be a flatter and faster course. Again, this is also a marathon which is pretty much starts and ends in downtown Chicago. It's right. You can see from the pictures where this is near the finish line. I mean, the day before, and it's right in the heart of the city, the business district. Well, Chicago was a good day for me. Good weather, fortunately, not too windy. It's known as the Windy City. It wasn't a wet day, and I surprised myself. I actually beat my previous personal best, which was from New York, where I beat it by about 12 seconds. So that's to date is my best timing. Chicago.
You actually got better and better, younger and younger. Actually, through the 6, right? Third time.
Well, this was my best to date.
I liked it to date.
5 done, 1 to go. I thought everything was going well, and then in November last year, I got a new type of a heel injury, not the Achilles. This was the bottom of the heel, It was really, really annoying. I couldn't put my heel down. It was really painful. And I thought, look, what's going to happen? I've got this one big race to come. Very depressed, but fortunately with some good physio and rest, things got a bit better by mid-December. So I had a break of running till mid-December, and I said, let me just test it out and run the Mumbai Marathon to check how it holds up, run, walk. And I managed to finish Mumbai Marathon without any major trouble, which gave me the confidence for run Tokyo, but I didn't have the type of training that I needed because of the setback, the injury. Tokyo, there was a lot.
Again, I'm going to stop you. So you've done 5 and you run the Mumbai Marathon just to see. But how does Mumbai compare with Tokyo in terms of difficulty? I mean, or in the other 6? Forget the number of people who come, but in terms of difficulty, how would you rate Mumbai?
Mumbai is a tougher race because of 2 things. One, the weather. It's much warmer, much more humid. And compared to, except Boston and New York, Mumbai's got, the Pedder Road Hill, which comes at 35 kilometers. You also get that same hill going out at 5 or 6 kilometers. So it's not a flat course like many of the others. But and the weather can hurt it. This 2023, we had the best weather ever in the Mumbai Marathon. I mean, I've been running it since 2007 and never had such good weather.
How many times have you done Mumbai?
I believe this last one was the 14th Mumbai.
14 times, I repeat. So I just went and ran it for the 14th time as practice before going for the 6th grade.
Yeah. Well, Tokyo had a lot of uncertainties. We didn't know till the middle of last or toward the end of last year whether we could even travel to Japan, because Japan, after COVID, was closed. We had all sorts of crazy rules about coming to Japan. Till October, they had I think they opened up in June, July of last year. Until October, November, they said you can only come in if you come in with a Japanese government-recognized tour group. And if all of the people all over the world saying, how do you find this tour group? What do you do? How do you do it? So people are uncertain whether we could even get there. Then they lifted some of those restrictions. And then the recent wave of COVID that came in early 23, Indian government put a rule that people coming back from 6 countries, which is China and etc. Japan was one of the 6. People had to get an RT-PCR test before coming back. And we had to start saying, okay, you go there, we run it. God forbid you test positive. What are you going to do? You're going to be stuck in Japan. It's no fun. And where do you get this RT-PCR test? All those things give language issues and also there's a lot, a lot of uncertainty there. And then Tokyo marathon had some crazy rules, which I've never seen that before in any marathon, which we had to fill in every day. There was a health app they gave us. We had to download and we had to fill in on our own, every day to log your temperature and how you were feeling, any travel, international travel. And then when we went and collected our kit, they gave us 2 test kits for COVID, and we had to supposedly self-test and enter it. And you had to carry, then this health app, you had to then carry to the start line. So you had to carry your phone to the start line. Just before the start line, you had to scan it to show that you were okay. They were doing a temperature test. So eventually you were running, this is the only marathon I ran carrying my phone. All of us had to carry our phone. And there were other things like this which were irritants, which everybody felt. Having said that, it was the same rule for everybody, not for me. And in hindsight, when I looked at it and said, just looking at that health app, I could have filled in anything. Nobody was checking. I didn't even need to do the test. So you could just fill in. There was, like an honor system. So, but just that they put a little extra stress before the race. We didn't know whether they were going to do random testing before the race and you'd be disqualified or something. But anyway, we all felt it. But in spite of that, all these hassles, I think because of the backlog of races, I think Tokyo this time had the highest number of international participants as a percentage of the total entry compared to any previous year in Tokyo. And so there were runners from all over the world out there. So Tokyo's run is a downtown Tokyo run. It starts in Shinjuku and ends near the Imperial Palace. Lots of loops, as you could see, which is, it's nice to be running in the city, but the loops could create one issue, which is Tokyo is also, like Chicago, a very windy city. And it's also early March, it's cold. When we ran, the maximum temperature was 8 degrees. So when we started off, when we lined up, it was probably 4 degrees, 3 or 4 degrees. So it was cold, and with the wind, it felt much colder. Fortunately, it was a day when there was no rain. I've known people who run Tokyo before who've told me about the rain, and that just not just makes you feel cold, but if your shoes get wet and you're cold, then that's not very comfortable. So I was lucky, no rain. So, because we were, like Ambuj and I were among many who were doing our 6th, so they give you a special bib. So you get 2 bibs, one for your front with your race number, and one at the back, which is the one there on the left, which is saying, today's the day, cheer me on. You've done 5, Tokyo's the 6th, so you've got this. So when you're running, people see that bib and they're cheering, spectators and others are cheering you on. That's me looking happy, thinking I'm on the course. And that's the moment I'll never forget. That's the finishing mat at Tokyo. And that's the end with getting the 6-star medal and 3 medals, which Ambuj, you should stand for that too. I said you should stand for that too. You got the same 3. And so all of us get this proof that we've done it, this certificate which tells you've done all 6 and with the timings. And as you can see, the outlier there being London. Most of the others have been in a fairly close range, but London was that day, and maybe someday I need to go and correct that. So I said this after the Everest Marathon, why I did it. It's something I believe in, that I'd rather look back and say, I can't believe I did that, instead of saying, I wish I did that. And I've had motivation, aside from Fauja Singh, from various people, various things, and I'm talking about age. I think the first rule is very important. If you don't rule your mind will rule you. So you've got to believe that you can do it, and you will. Don't add days to your life, add life to your days. Third thing, which is very important for any passion, is that success is a journey, not a destination. The doing is more important than the outcome, and if you enjoy the journey, the outcome's going to be great. And coming to age, the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago. Second best time is today. So if you want to do something, you didn't start it earlier, it's not too late, go out and get it. And today is the first day of the rest of our lives. Make the most of it. And I wished for all of you, I'm going to end with this. This is written by Bob Dylan from his song Forever Young. And I'm not going to read it, but I think it says all. Something I wish for everybody here.
May your feet always be swift. It's so appropriate. Bob Dylan.
Yeah. He didn't write it for marathon, I think.
So I did something which Sunil does not know about, but I asked him to give me the names of a few people who were inspired by him, and I spoke to them independently, and I got a reply from someone which I'm going to read out for the first time. Some of you may know her, Apurva Chowdhury, right? That's her name. So Apurva Chowdhury ran her first 10 kilometers in 2017. Okay, some of you might have run 10K before that. Okay, I had, so I felt she ran it after me. And then she suffered from asthma, and she had to be hospitalized several times. From her own office. She had to go to hospital. I mean, she just couldn't survive in an office. And then she began running. And then someone said, run a marathon, which she did. And then she ran 100 kilometers. And then Sunil tells me she holds the record for running 200 kilometers in 24 hours. Okay? So Apurva, moved from first 10K to...
She was the first Indian woman, who ran, who broke the 200-kilometer mark in 24 hours.
So again, for the benefit of non-runners, when you 24 hours means you run for 24 hours. Okay. Just last week we had a 24-hour stadium run in Bangalore. 9 p.m. people started, and at 8:30 they said, okay, last half an hour. Okay. So there's a different world out there for those of you who are not part of that world. And in this world, when you run for 24 hours, the thing that matters is, can you break the 200-kilometer mark? Okay. And this girl has done it. So, and she represented India in the 100K. So I just wrote to her 24 hours. So I'll just quote what she says. So I said, give me a few lines about Sunil that I can attribute to you, because this is another part of his character which is not spoken about. One is, of course, going and competing, but one is supporting other runners and, making them feel young and inspire them. And the best person to speak is Apurva. Sunil is a powerhouse of positivity. He was our team manager at Arun Pai, France, when we went to represent India in the 24 Hours World Championship. And he ensured that we had everything that we needed. He was on his toes for 3 days, running around doing all the chores for the team. He calls himself the Paniwala for the Indian 100-kilometer water boy. On the race day, he was awake throughout 24 hours. He was smiling and crowing. And I don't think any other manager, even age 25, could have done it better than him. Sunil also does a lot of philanthropy for sports. He sponsored and arranged the training of the Indian ultra running team in Bangalore in August 2019. He invited a coach from the US who trained us for over 2 weeks. That's when Kannan, who is the team manager, and I got a chance to run with Sunil. Sunil asked us our age, and then he told us that he is elder than the combined age of both of us. But he said that you can only call him old if you can outrun him and out-party him. He is true to his words. It's definitely not easy to outrun or out-party him. Wonderful, right? That is Apurva. And she wrote this in like 2 minutes. I just messaged her. She doesn't know me from Adam. She wrote this. So why don't you speak a little bit about your working with young people who run 200 kilometers in 24 hours? Because I think that's an important part of what you do.
Well, I think I got this opportunity to, for a couple of years, to be with the Indian ultra teams, 4 teams, and I'd never been a crew member, and I'd been to many of the races here, but being a crew member outside India is very different, because here you go to any race and you're totally spoilt, and every runner's got 3 helpers. Where you go for an international race, they have a limit to the number of crew members a team can have. And so, in fact, let me talk of the 24-hour races, because 2 of them I went for. Those are much tougher. 100 kilometers are much easier because they're 8, 9, 10 hours. But 24 hours race, you start by preparing for that. And I dare say many of our runners, most of them had never run an international race. Some of them were traveling out of India for the first time. And they're not used to being particularly organized. So I would see international guys would come with small things and everything was placed neatly and all that. And our tent looked like a baggage dump in a railway station. They were not, we told people, tell us what you want to eat, tell us the clothes you want to change, we'll give it to you. But were they organized? No. It was learning for me, and over a period of time, one tried to help them. But, I was in the same race in Albi in France at 24 hours, and it's a weekend, and nothing is open in France on a weekend, especially in small town France. At 11 o'clock at night, one of the runners, she comes to me and says, I want curd rice. And I said, where am I going to get it for you? And she's vegetarian. So we found a place, we said, got curd rice. There's nothing vegetarian out there. So it was a lot of learning there, but it's also great because you feel you can help people and do things for them. You also get to see the best in the world. I saw in Albi, Camille Herron smash the world 24-hour record. So you see that part of it. You get to meet interesting people from different parts of the world. It's a huge learning, and then you see that how you can, in your own way, try and contribute. And so if I may almost boast and say that one of the things that I'm really proud of was 2018 24-hour team at the Asia Oceania Championships, where our men won the first ever for the first time ever, we won a medal at an international competition. And it was great being there, the energy, and seeing what you could do for them. And in a way, I think that focus, it was almost management. You focus. There's 6 runners. They count the time, the distance of the top 3 runners, and how you manage. And you say, okay, you are the 3 guys who are going to give you the best attention. The other guys will finish, but you 3 guys go and get that medal. So there's a lot of learning and great experience.
So I've just got a couple of questions, and then we'll open it to the audience. I think that's the best way. But he said he wanted to boast about something. He's not a boastful guy. He's very reticent, actually. And one of my jobs here is to provoke him to speak more. So since he hasn't mentioned a few things, I'll just go ahead and say it. But there was a guy who reached the quarterfinals of the Indian squash singles long back. And then he wrote an exam and got into IIM Ahmedabad. And so we lost a squash player. So Sunil was actually a quarter-finalist in the Indian Nationals in squash. Okay, and then he chose to become an MBA for some reason. and
How sad.
Yeah, and then but interestingly again, unfortunately, because I'm from Bangalore, I have to say this. After he worked for a few years, he moved to Bangalore. Everyone does. And then he became the captain of the Karnataka squash team. Okay, so he actually played much later. He represented our state in squash. So Sunil has had has been a sportsman. And I wanted to mention a few things before we started. I was looking at the newspaper yesterday, and we had Rohan Bopanna at 43, okay, winning an ATP. And I mean, he's pushed till 43. And I saw the next one was, Zlatan Ibrahimovic at 41, is the oldest guy to score a goal. And I don't know if you have Reet out here, but I'm a big fan of Reet Devaya. Not only because she's a brilliant sports person and she competed with PT Usha and of that era, she continued and she has taken part in World Masters, and she's the gold medal winner in triple jump, and she crossed 60. So we have a lot of people who have who have been sportsmen from a young age. Many retire, many continue, but this guy is different. He took up his passion of running at the age of 40. He hadn't run a marathon or half marathon until 2003. So he took up an interest.
Not even a 5K.
Not even a 5K, right? So he might have been a squash player. He was not a runner at all, right? And so the interesting thing, and the whole topic being forever young, is that, when is the right time to start anything new? So Sunil's running passion began much later in life, in his 40s. So for the benefit of those who don't run, supposing I walk half an hour a day, what's your advice? Because, runners can run marathons and ultras and 100Ks, but what about the people who don't run and who want to do something new starting at a later stage in life? What's your...
As I said, like the best time to plant a tree was 25 years ago, but the second best time is now. Go out and do it. I really feel if Fawjak Singh could do it at 89, what's stopping you? Honestly, you've got to believe in yourself. Of course, there are things, you've got to be sensible in what you do, what you choose. Do it, the older you get, you've got to be a little more careful as you break into any, especially if it's something physical, you've got to train for it. And as the saying says, it goes that you get fit to play a sport, you don't play a sport to get fit. So, follow that. But if you're just determined, and if you take, there's this thing of the 1% rule, if you get 1% better every week, you're probably 4 times better in a year. So, gradually build up. So if you've got a passion, and I'm not talking about sport, anything, go get it.
The other question I've often asked you is that, marathons are the new golf. Like corporate leaders, everyone wants to be in a marathon. Everyone wants to sponsor one. It's becoming a badge of honor in the corporate world, at least too, right? And you have seen the corporate world. So why is it? Why is it that running and marathons is something that has become the flavor of, say, business leaders?
So I think the one...
Is there any link to business performance?
Definitely, but let me first think one thing about marathons compared to most other sports. Marathon is a truly participative sport. If you go to see Wimbledon, you'll be seeing Federer or Djokovic, and there'll be one winner, one loser, and you're a spectator. A marathon, the New York Marathon, there's 55,000 winners. You finish, you're a winner. It doesn't matter whether you did 2 hours, 1 minute like Kipchoge or 7 hours. You finish, you're a winner. So there's something about that. So that's one of the reasons why you get all types of people running marathons. All ages, senior executives. We've got a few senior execs like Chandra of Tata's who does it, or Rashesh of Edelweiss, or Anil Ambani doing a half. We got few examples here, but I think more and more are going to come about it. Let me, rather than put golf, for saying, when you say something like marathon or sport, why I believe that they will make better managers. Firstly, once you take up something like a sport or marathon, you're focused, you're training, you're learning, you're disciplined. You're willing to learn from others. And I believe great sportsmen have one outstanding quality, and that's humility. Because they know that you may be number one today, but there's somebody better than you waiting. So you've got to keep learning, you've got to keep improving, you've got to keep practicing. You can't sit back. The moment you get arrogant, you're gone. So there's something there for you to keep aspiring to get better. In addition to that, what I find in a sport like in marathons is that because it's at this stage, it's not a sport spoilt by huge money. You can approach people at all levels. There's humility. I have had the good fortune of meeting the great Haile Gabriel Asasi, who's world record holder for many years. I met him a few times. Such a funny guy, such a simple, down-to-earth guy. I recently know somebody who was in Kenya in a place called Aiton, which is the place where people go to train the best marathoners. And this guy met Kipchoge, who's the current world record holder, the only guy who's done this, the sub-2 marathon. And Kipchoge was happy talking to them, giving them advice. So there's a bit of humility. So you can interact with people of all levels, all over the world. And I think that for people in the corporate world, running a marathon as all like a sport, you're going to learn to make sacrifices. You're going to learn to set goals for yourself. You're going to learn to aspire to get those goals. You're going to learn to try and get better at it. All these things are going to, help you in the corporate world. You're not likely to be, going also from one sport to another very fast.
But if you've got to travel, if you have a tough schedule, what a lot of excuses one can make. What do you tell people who do that?
I have no time for them. Absolutely no time when people tell me about all the excuses. So I'm going to give you two examples of this. One is we talk about weather. It's horrible weather. The Tokyo and Boston marathons happen in March and April, and a lot of the runners are local runners. They train through really cold winters out there. They're out, they get out and go. So what they say, okay, now this works more for cold weather than warm weather, but they say there's no such thing as bad weather, it's bad clothing. You get the right layers and all that. But imagine it's freezing cold, it's minus 20 degrees, it's windy, it's snowing, and you want to get out and go and train. The easiest thing to say is I'll stay in bed. So to make an excuse like weather, I'm sorry, no. The second thing, I'll come to you in one second. The second thing I would say is that people say we don't have the conditions, and yes, there are issues of safety as unfortunately happened here. But I'll talk of a country which I believe has one of the strongest running cultures in the world, which is South Africa. And I don't think there's any country that's more unsafe than South Africa to go out on your own. So people have to go out running in groups, especially women. They can't go out alone. And they have amazing runners, absolutely amazing runners. So it's easy to find an excuse, but if you want to do it, there's a way to find it. Yeah. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I think to respond to your question, I asked the same question to a friend of mine who's a runner. His name is Sushant, so he's currently the CEO. So sorry, to answer your question about time and how do you manage and stuff. So I asked this question to my friend Sushant, who is the CEO of Starbucks India. And he told me, look, I work for a guy, his name is Chandra, and he's a 6-star runner. He's the chairman of Tata Group. If he can find time, why can't I? So yeah, so there goes your answer. Thanks.
I think you were mentioning the first thing you pack when you travel is your shoes, right, Sunil?
Yes,
Yeah.
most important. My running shoes, not my black shoes.
Yeah, so we're going to actually end and leave time for questions, but I was tempted when you quoted Bob Dylan to think of the other living legend who probably hasn't run much, Paul McCartney, when I'm 64, right? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? All of you know that song? Yeah? So I want to...
Question for
Yeah, so, no, so we can rephrase it. We will still need you and we will still feed you when you're 104. And on that note, I think we can open the ground for questions.
You feed, what about my beer? You only said feed me.
Yeah, the floor is open. So, Sunil wants tough questions. You'll have to come to the mic so that it gets recorded. That's it. Oh, can you pass this around? But okay, you'll come. You'll be seen as well.
Sunil, this is more of a comment I think which we've spoken about before, but it's can you explain the mental game that goes on, right, in the whole process of running a marathon? And I think in the past, I don't know if it was you who told me that there are people who've run a great distance, almost all of it, and 200 or 500 meters before that they can't do anymore. And people have offered to carry them across the line. So can you explain how do you take care of that, right? There's pain and there's physical pain that you talked about. But what's the mental game? What's the preparation for the mental game?
Well, they say that you run the first part of a marathon with your legs, and the second half you run with your head. So you are going to feel pain. I know I do feel the pain. I do have issues of losing a lot of salt and cramping, and I've learned over the years how to try and manage it. But I think it's a mental thing of saying, as the term DNF, like I don't want to DNF. I'm going to get there. And so then you start, visualizing and thinking what's next. So like I must say that in Mumbai this year when I was grossly undertrained, after 35 kilometers I was saying, I'm meeting my friends at Leopold's for a beer. Kept saying that, I kept reminding myself, and I got to the finish line. But it is hugely a mental game, and and everybody who runs a marathon, even the best in the world will tell you that. So you got to be quite big-headed and say, I'm not going to give up, because there will be times in a race when you do feel the pressure. The second thing is, yes, I've seen people who have struggled 100, 200, 500 meters from the end, and there's a lot of camaraderie in a marathon, and people will help you, will lift you up. Now, you can't physically carry a person and take them because you'll be disqualified, but you try and help them up and help them as much as possible. I've seen it happen. I've seen people give up their timings to help other people, and in some cases, like they've given up timings which have got them qualification for a race. They've given that up to help somebody else. So there's a spirit of brotherhood, family, and that's why when I started this about losing this person, we feel as runners here that we've lost one of our family. So there are people out there looking out for you.
And conversely, Sunil, when you talked about how you carry things from running into the corporate life and vice versa, do you actually feel yourself, or have you known for people who've been able to become more resilient in other parts of their life because they run marathons?
So let me answer in a different way. When I was involved in the corporate world, I always had a soft corner for all things being equal for somebody who had another big interest, sport, theater, something like that, which because I felt that those people are better all-rounders. They could get along better with others. Aside from the aspiration of doing something, they had an interest. You could talk to them. They'll get, they're not just workaholics. You need team players, people you can interact with, you can have fun with. And so I think that all-rounders are, in my view, much, much better managers.
Thank you.
I know many people, including myself, who love to run but get injured. I know many people, including myself, who love to run and then get injured, from plantar fasciitis to knee problems. I know people who love to run and then gave up because of knee problems. I think you got injured at least once, you mentioned. How do you deal with injuries? Because sometimes you can be motivated, you can be hardworking, but unless the pain goes away, you just can't continue.
So I think every injury is different. I think in most cases, injuries come because of or weakness in some other part of the body. So my injury or Achilles came from years of overpronation and a few other things I was doing at a time when I didn't know what pronation was that time. So it's from that through years of that. So first you've got to find out the root cause of that. And then I honestly believe that for a sports person, you have to only go to a sports physio. You go to an orthopedic guy and he'll say, you're too old to run, you're too old to sing. And I say, and if there are any orthopedic doctors here, sorry, but that's what I think. If you go to a sports physio, his or her role is to get you back on your feet and running. And then the key is first find out what caused it, work on it, strengthen the muscles around it, and whatever needs to be done after that. A lot of physio. Now, even though I've been a sportsman most of my life, till 2007, I did not know what strength training was. I'd never been to a gym. And that's when I learned about it. And then I'm fortunate if I'm running today, a lot of it's because from then, I'm at least twice or thrice a week at strength train. So you need to work around, find out and work around it. And key, as I said, is you need to be fit to play the sport, not the other way around.
Thank you.
When you put up the timings for your 6 majors, they're all sub 5 hour. For somebody who's past 65 and however old you are, an amazing timing. Your first marathon, you said you ran after 65, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
40. First marathon I ran was about 45.
So after your 60, when you ran one of your first marathons, was it all sub 5 hours?
Yeah, except for London where I had that
Except
issue.
London, of course, but
Yeah.
you had to take you were injured and whatever. Otherwise, all of them were sub 5 hour marathons.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, except Everest Base Camp, which was 11 and a half hour marathon. But that is a different story.
Oh, that's terrible. I mean, thank you. That's terrible.
We got in our audience a few people who who do sub 3 hour marathons here.
Again, can I interject for those who don't get this jargon, those who don't run, who might go to the gym and put the treadmill on 8. 8 kilometers per hour. Do most of you understand what that means? So can you do 8 kilometers per hour for 1 hour? That's 8 kilometers, right? So when you do a sub 5 hour marathon, what's the treadmill rate on that? It's good to sometimes bring down a marathon to what?
6 kilometers.
Yeah, between 6 and 7, right? So you're maintaining.
Not 6 and 7. 6 and 7 is a big.
Sorry. No, sometimes I realize that now a lot of people can relate to 8 on the treadmill, and to maintain that for 4 hours is very special.
8 will give you a 5 hour 15 marathon.
Yeah, 5 hour 15 marathon. Right? So,
But Sunil, the important thing is sub 3. I know there are people sub 3 here.
Yes.
But doing what you're doing past 60 is the whole point.
Well,
There are people who do it sub.
But no, so again, let's put this in perspective. There are several runners in India, my age and older than me, who are much faster than me.
I'm sure.
And I'm not talking of professionals, I'm talking of amateurs. Go globally, and I have a good friend a Canadian friend who also ran Tokyo and got a 6-star there, who used to live in India, and he's 69 now, and he's doing on average a 320 to 330 marathon. So it's all relative. They have a fantastic running culture there, and he's far more disciplined than me. This timing is a relative thing. I think, in fact, when people ask me about timing, my thing is that I don't worry about a good time. I worry about having a good time.
In Tokyo, there was a 65-year-old lady who did a 3 hours.
Bobby, we can't hear you. Come to the mic, yeah. It's being recorded only here.
Yeah, just to add on to what Sunil was saying, in Tokyo, I think there was a lady, a 65-year-old lady, who did a full marathon in around 3 hours, 12 minutes. 65. And this was, I think, her third marathon in a span of around 5 weeks. And she did that in 3 hours, 5 minutes. So, yeah. So,
walking himself is a 3-hour marathon. That would
Yeah.
barefoot.
No, leave that apart. So there was a there was a question regarding injuries, right? How do we handle injuries? Again, lot of this comes by the strength. So in my case, I'll just tell you, I've had surgery in my left, in my right, in my knee. Yeah, so a lot of this I've actually had surgeries happening, and I've got a rod over here, and all this is common due to sports. Like I was doing one of the hurdle runs, I fell off, broke off my bones, so had a surgery. And then all my doctors would tell me that you should never be doing any physical exercises. You would just not be doing it. If someone challenges me, I would do exactly the opposite. Yeah. So probably I would say that I do a lot more of physical exercises now than I would be doing my running. So it's not about strength. It's not about where do you want to focus on. So do you want to focus on running? Do you want to focus on strengthening? What is it that, but all of this comes in a package, so that's what we need to be clear about. Again, he mentioned that, it's not just, you can't just be running all the time, you need to be focusing on many other stuffs like diet, strengthening and all of this. So just sharing my thoughts. Thanks.
What next, Sunil? What next?
Yeah, I mean, if no one is going to ask, that is the question we're waiting for. Come here and ask it. What next?
I just wanted to say that what does he have next?
Okay, unlike the lady who did 3 and 5 weeks and can keep going, I've done 5 and 10.5 months, and I think that my body is saying just give it a little break. And I'm sure I'm going to be doing active things going forward, whether it's running, trekking, whatever. But I just don't want to think about it for a short while, and I think I've earned that right for that. Because I think the moment you sign up, there's a bit of pressure. So I'm not signed up yet, but sport has been part of my life. That's not going to go away. So,
Any more questions? Why don't you come here?
Mine is actually more a comment than a question. Because along with my friend Shanti here, Sunil and she and I were in class together. So I've known him since he was really young. A lot of you in the room may not believe this, but Sunil was the shortest person in our entire class. He was 5'2". And it was extremely easy to overlook Sunil in many ways. Sunil has made sure that nobody will ever overlook him again, and all of us just look up to him, not only because of his physical height, but of the incredible achievements that he has, and the way his strength and his mental focus, and not only his running, but I am just so awed and just so proud of being a friend of Sunil's because of what he has contributed to the sport, inspired other runners, literally put his money where his mouth is, run his feet off and helped everybody else to run their hearts off. Unfortunately, I am one of those people who Sunil has no time for because I'm full of excuses about a million things in my life which I can't do. But I shall hope to be inspired more by Sunil than I have so far. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Very kind.
Any other questions? We've gone through over an hour and we have not mentioned 2 words which are not, you would expect in a talk like this: weight loss and the right diet. So do you want to, I mean, that's normally the first question that people ask. A lot of people I know run to lose weight, and a lot of people are extremely concerned about what they should and should not eat. So what's your mantra for?
So let me start with the second one.
Yeah.
When it comes to food, if it's tasty, I eat it.
Okay.
So it's,
If it's tasty, he eats it.
No, so I'm coming to that, and I think when it comes to hydration, I think the microbreweries here will suffer if I go out of town. So I think that's a very important part. As I said, I started off running at the Hash House Harriers. For those who don't know what the Hash House Harriers are, it's a drinking club with a running problem. So it started off that way. It stays. So I only got attracted to the hash because of the cold beer at the end, and we used to run 3 kilometers and drink 6 beers, sort of thing. So I enjoy good food. I enjoy a good beer, a good glass of wine. So I've never, really never been on a diet. What I do prior to every marathon, the last 4 or 5 days, I'll probably go a little easy on anything that will dehydrate me, including alcohol, because I sweat more than most people do, and I tend to cramp. I tend to lose a lot of salt. So I try to stay hydrated for those 5 days, and maybe for the last 2 days before the marathon, little extra pasta, carbs in the form of pastas, but no other special diet at all. And weight loss is something that I've never really cared about. I mean, I don't like flab. I'm not worried about weight. I don't look at my weight. I think that because exercise is part of my life, I don't feel good if I don't work out. So I try to work out 4, 5, 6 times a week. So maybe that's helping in keeping some of that off.
So we had Bjorn Borg in town a few weeks ago, right? And apart from all his tennis exploits, I think there was one part of him that some of you might know about. He was ice cool, right? He had this legendary low heart rate. How do you compare with Bjorn Borg, do you know? Because he's got an incredibly low heart rate. And he's very cool and calm, and it's measurable. It's a different racket.
So I didn't know this concept of heart rate till many years ago. I was in Madras and I was unwell, and the doctor came and checked my pulse, and he said, "You must be really unwell." And then he said, "Do you play a sport?" And I was playing quite a lot of squash then. So he said, "I've never seen that." And I think it was in the mid-30s at that.
Mid-30s, I repeat.
And resting heart.
Resting heart rate.
And then about 6 months ago, I was.
What is the normal resting heart rate? 72. So his normal resting was 30s. Yeah.
And then funny thing happened about 6 months ago. I was suddenly in the middle of the night, my watch started to buzz. And I said, it's a call coming in, what's happening? And I said, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, what's happening? And warning. I said, what is this warning? And it said, your heart rate's dropped below 40. So, I've been lucky that it's normally in the low 40s now.
Okay, I think we're out of time, so I want to end with 2, since we have a smattering of runners and others here. I mean, all of us want to do the 6-star, but the good excuse is visa and costs, right? I mean, that excuse can work, right? So if we had to do a 6-star for India, could you recommend, I'm putting you on the spot, 6 races in India that I can travel cheap by train to and do, which are tougher, and forget the popularity, which would be the 6 Indian marathons you would rate? So we can have an Indian 6-star.
We have, actually, we had our Indian 6-star, which is some of us, we've got this group called Bhukamp, which is the original 6, which was Bangalore, Hyderabad, U was the Ultra, K was the Kaveri Trail, Mumbai, and Pondicherry. So we had our 6, and now there are many more. I think the challenge in India would be that because of weather, most of those will get packed between November and Feb. So it'll be difficult.
Now, what I meant was to make this a more accessible target for others.
Yeah.
Why don't you institute a 6-star for India? Which you can do over 3 years, and you can start awarding.
I think
by the way, Sunil has instituted scholarships for sports people in his college. He truly believes that sport has to be spread. So I'm just giving you an idea on the stage.
I think what's happening is that rather, because they're different race organizers, many of them are doing their own slams. So they're doing like Procam, who does the Mumbai Marathon. They do 4 races, different distances. They're not all marathons. If you do all 4 within that period, then you get a slam. But the slam has to be done within that 1 year. So that it's coming in different forms, not necessarily in the form of 6-star.
Are we allowed to exceed time, or we're on time? Any more questions? Any more observations? So normally when people write books, they do book signings. I may suggest if you want to pose with Sunil's medals along with him and take a selfie, that's a good way to end this session. I don't know if you're allowed to wear them or...
So wait.
No. No. But a selfie with Sunil and his medals is how we'll end this. Thank you, everyone. It's been a wonderful session.
Thanks, Arun. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunil.
Thanks.
And thank you, BIC.